Greetings, I am Dralof the Arcturian. Did you know there are legends of an inner Earth civilization that exists alongside humanity within the planet? Said to hold a second sun and multiple civilizations living across the fourth and fifth dimension. And did you know many accounts claim this inner Earth becomes reachable through portals on Earth's surface, often linked to sacred areas scattered across the world? In these accounts, there exists an inner Earth realm sometimes called Agartha, described by believers as a hidden domain beneath or alongside the surface world. In these legends, inner Earth is not presented only as a physical location, but as a layered continuum of reality, an interdimensional region said to overlap with ordinary space through subtle thresholds. Inside the Earth, Agartha, the inner city, persists because there is a small sun positioned at the planet's inner center. That central sun provides continuous illumination, and because it never rises or sets, most of the inner or hollow world remains in perpetual daylight. Night, in the usual sense, never arrives. Sunsets, sunrises, and stars never appear. One exception is mentioned: a limited region of dimness known as the Land of Awful Shadow. Its gloom is described as a localized effect, an area that falls under a fixed shadow cast by the stationary central sun above a particular point of the inner world surface. With daylight effectively unbroken, the account connects the environment to unusual consequences for time and daily life. Time is described as irregular and difficult to standardize. Events become hard to coordinate, and different people can experience time at different speeds depending on perspective. Aging is described as unclear or slowed in effect, while basic needs like eating and sleeping still continue. Instead of clocks and calendars, duration is measured in practical units: sleeps. Agartha described as a place that can be engaged through portals, gateways, or frequency-based access points, and the legends claim that access becomes possible when a person's inner state aligns with the required conditions. Rather than emphasizing ordinary travel, the story world emphasizes resonance. When the correct energetic threshold is reached, the individual is said to be able to perceive, enter, or communicate with inner Earth layers that exist parallel to the surface. These portals are connected to processes of spiritual transformation, sometimes described as embodiment, initiation, or activation. Human perception is portrayed as expandable through shifts in consciousness that allow contact with parallel continuums. Inner Earth is described as a time-layered field, multiple timelines or bands of existence said to coexist in the same planetary sphere. This as a kind of sliding access between realities, sometimes framed as transharmonic movement, crossing from one layer of the world to another through dimensional interfaces. In the same legendary framing, such openings are believed to have increased in modern times, with the idea that the planetary environment is undergoing shifts that make these interfaces more available. One of the most famous Agarthan inner Earth legends traces back to around 1150 in the small English village of Woolpit, the strange tale later known as the Green Children from Inner Earth.
Cá bhfuil tú, freagar mé, Táimeann seo, tá ceol ag titim agus tá oíche ag teacht.
d'artar, féach an uamh sin. Tá sé ró chorca.
Chail mé mo préagán is tí an. Hit sé in aca leis na carrigatha.
Cough mid mammy a aimsí ar dús.
Tá cio ag titim agus tá an ihe ag teacht.
Só é a lorg úr fós. Támid ingnar dó.
A bhóvrá is tú glór na mácara.
Arm buachlí. Cá bhéad fadí se bheith?
Nílam cinnte a grá.
In a time when the earth was pocked with deep pits meant to trap wolves, people learned to respect the ground. It could swallow a foot, a cartwheel, a whole animal if you stepped wrong. So when harvest season came and the fields were loud with work, shouts, clinking tools, the creak of wooden carts, no one in the English village called Woolpit expected the strangest discovery to arrive, never from the sky, but from the edge of a ditch. They were found in daylight near the pits, as if the land itself had delivered them. 2 children stood together. They were small, small enough that a grown man could have lifted either one with one arm, yet old enough to look back with a kind of wary intelligence. They held close as though separation would end them. Their clothing was unlike anything the villagers wore, unfamiliar cuts, unfamiliar fabric, stitched in a way that didn't match local hands. The hems sat strange. The seams ran in places no village tailor would choose. Even their shoes, if shoes they were, looked like a guess at the shape of footwear rather than a thing made by custom. But it was their skin that stopped the workers first. It was green, an unmistakable green, like leaves shaded from the sun. Never paint, never dirt. Them. For a moment, the field went quiet in that sharp, frightened way a crowd goes quiet when it sees something it cannot place. Then talk rose in bursts, prayers half remembered, curses whispered, names of saints and warnings about witches and fae, each voice searching for a label sturdy enough to hold what their eyes were showing them. Someone tried to speak to the children, a simple question in the plain tongue of the village. The children answered, yet their words were nothing anyone recognized. It was zero speech of nearby towns, zero chant of travelers, zero anything that could be bargained with. The sounds ran together like water over stones, quick and slippery, with a music to it that made the villagers feel as if they were listening through a wall. The children clung to each other and refused to be led at first, eyes wide, as though the surface world was too bright, too sharp, too loud. When a man stepped closer, the boy flinched. When a woman reached out with her palm open, the girl pulled back and turned her face into her brother's shoulder, as if his body was the last safe thing she knew. Still, the villagers could never leave them there. They brought the green-skinned children into the village, down the dirt lane between low cottages and fenced gardens, past the stares of people who stepped out of doorways with flour on their hands, past dogs that bristled, then backed away. A few children followed at a distance, bold in the way children can be, until their mothers hissed them back inside. In the presence of food and fire and a dozen anxious faces, the strangers only seemed smaller. Bread was offered first, good coarse bread, still smelling of the oven. The children refused it, turning their faces away as if the scent itself was wrong. Meat was held out. They refused it. Milk in a wooden cup, the kind of comfort a child is meant to trust. They turned away as if it were poison. Their fear did zero softening. They spoke among themselves in their own quick language, the boy's hand gripping the girl's sleeve so hard his knuckles looked pale beneath the green. Their eyes darted over everything, the dark rafters, the smoke, the straw, the faces, like animals trapped in a new kind of cage. Days passed like that, quiet, tense days. Word spread beyond Woolpit as word always does. People came to stare, to cross themselves, to offer guesses dressed up as certainty. Some said the children were a punishment, some said they were a sign, some said they were merely sick, starved, poisoned by herbs, stained by misfortune. Yet none of that explained the language, or the clothing, or the way the children looked at the world, as if they had been dropped into it from too far away. Meanwhile, the children grew weaker. Their green skin looked almost more vivid against the pale straw of the bedding they were given. Their ribs began to show beneath the thin fabric of their strange garments. Their movements slowed, as though their bodies were rationing whatever strength remained. People began to worry they would die simply because 01 could guess what they needed. Then came the moment that felt like a message from chance. A bundle of broad beans was brought in from the fields, still in their pods, fresh and heavy, green upon green. The sole purpose of them was ordinary food. Yet the instant the children saw the beans, they changed, their faces sharpened with recognition. The boy made a sound, half a gasp, half a cry, and both children reached out with the urgency of starving animals who finally smell what they can eat. They seized the pods, fumbling, trembling. They tore them open and consumed the beans raw, chewing fast, swallowing too quickly, as if they feared the food might vanish if they dared to slow down. It was the first time the villagers saw them act with certainty. After that, the children survived. The village began to keep broad beans close, like medicine. The children ate them again and again until their hands stopped shaking when a pod was offered. Slowly, they accepted other foods as well. First cautiously, then with less suspicion. Slowly, their bodies adjusted to the surface world. Slowly, the green of their skin began to fade, like a stain rinsed out over time. Yet even as the children became less strange to the eye, they remained strange in their manner.
Ijimiena ostra hana weworta said.
Koro. Trosnos.
They stayed watchful, they stayed quiet, and they stayed joined. brother and sister, linked by something deeper than fear, as if they were the last two pieces of a broken world. The boy was the first to fail. He had been weaker from the beginning, the sort of weakness that looks like more than hunger. Even as he ate, even as his color shifted closer to ordinary, his body never seemed to decide to live. His breath turned shallow, his eyelids drooped as if sleep was dragging him down by force. Fever took him in waves, leaving him slick with sweat and trembling in the straw. The villagers did what villagers do. They tried herbs, warm cloths, prayers, and the steady human stubbornness that refuses to let a child slip away without a fight. In the village's telling, he died around the time he was baptized, around the moment someone tried to bind him with holy water and a Christian name into the order of the village and its god. It was as if he had arrived half in one world and half in another, and the crossing had cost him too much. The girl lived. She adapted in the slow way survivors do, through repetition, through listening, through the steady theft of language. She watched mouths. She copied gestures. She learned what a nod meant, what a shake of the head meant, what it meant when someone raised their voice and when someone softened it. In time, she learned to speak. And when she could finally answer the questions that had haunted Woolpit since the day she emerged from the pits, she told her story the sole way she could, in fragments, in images, in the shape of memory. She said they had come from a place where the sun never shone. She described it as a land where everything carried a green cast, solely their skin, but the world itself, as if the dim light there tinted life in that direction. She called their home St. Martin's Land. And even when the tellers disagreed about what the girl's story meant, miracle, omen, tragedy, or misunderstanding, they agreed on this. The day the Green Children appeared, Woolpit learned that the ground beneath a person's feet holds more than roots and stones. Sometimes it holds doors. Inner Earth is inhabited by multiple groups, and Agarthan is characterized as an umbrella term for the different species said to inhabit Earth's underworld, which are now too many to name. Inner Earth residents more broadly are described as existing civilizations distinct from surface humanity, often depicted as advanced in both spirituality and social order. Some versions claim these residents include a mixture of advanced human groups and reptilian civilizations, living within inner Earth layers that operate under different rules than surface society. In these accounts, inner Earth communities are portrayed as more stable and less violent than surface cultures. The legends sometimes claim that inner Earth inhabitants do not engage in war against one another in the way surface humans do, and that their societies maintain coherence through different ethical structures, energetic discipline, or collective harmony. Inner Earth residents are also described as physically similar to surface humans in overall form, while also being portrayed as refined in appearance and longevity, longer lifespans, or youthfulness at later ages, and greater symmetry. Surface humanity, by contrast, is sometimes described as more hybridized and more susceptible to aggression, chaos, and manipulation. Within that umbrella, legends describe a specific western branch of the Inner Earth network, identified as the Telesansi. They are described as originating from Alpha Centauri 4, a world called Telosons. They are as tall, human beings with pale, gleaming skin and white hair, and they are said to possess strongly developed telepathic capacities. Their eyes are described as clear, with coloration ranging from gray to pale blue. Their diet is presented as plant-based, with food grown hydroponically under full-spectrum artificial lighting. They are also said to use psychotronic technologies connected to crystals and a universal life force energy. The general mode of existence attributed to the Telosians is described as distinct from that of Terrans, with an emphasis on being calmer, quieter, and vibrating at a somewhat higher density. They are said to participate in protecting the environment and ecosystems, and they are also framed as resisting newer religious systems that, in this telling, disconnect humans from nature, from their own power, and from source. They are known for helping Earth Terrans recover hidden knowledge by providing tools and hints, guiding archaeological discoveries, and offering keys for decoding ancient knowledge. In this chronology, these Telosians are presented as an ancient colony related to the Telosians who settled on Earth long before the last ice age. The narrative claims that Earth's myths remember them under the name Lemurians, but argues that Atlanteans would be a more accurate label because their civilization is described as having extended through the Atlantic region and along its shores. After the destruction of their lands, they are said to have migrated into multiple areas, including the American continent, Western Africa, and Western Europe. Following these upheavals, they migrated underground, and during that movement, separated themselves from the Galactic Federation of Worlds. They are then described as becoming the western branch of an Agarthan network. At the same time, they are described as having interbred with Terrans, with the claim that their genetic markers appear repeatedly within Earth's human population. Like their Telosians cousins who are working with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, they are believed to be benevolent by nature and inclined to assist humanity, specifically by remembering humanity's ancient past, helping with its ascension, and improving human health and longevity. The flow of information about Inner Earth is also described as unstable due to competing narratives and alleged manipulation. Some versions claim that certain Inner Earth groups fear surface interference or invasion, and therefore contribute to disinformation currents. Within this framework, the legends say that some channeled messages and spiritual narratives become unreliable because they are filtered through multiple agendas, human misunderstanding, deliberate distortion, and competing factions. This is used to explain why Inner Earth lore appears contradictory across communities. The information field is portrayed as contested, layered, and subject to manipulation. The Telosians are asserted to be at the origin of crop circles, described as geometric clues meant to guide the decoding of a lost science. They are also linked to crystals commonly referred to as Lemurian crystals, with the claim that a more accurate name would be Telossi Quartz. Ancient text claims that wherever these crystals are found in the earth, the Telosians are nearby. These crystals are described as containing encoded keys that unlock ancient knowledge and data tied to the star origins of certain ancient civilizations. The crystals are said to function as keys rather than as books or devices that directly hold knowledge, and are framed as enabling access to knowledge rather than storing it in the usual way. In this account, their use of these keys is presented as one way they assist humanity's ascension, with the energy signature of the crystal structure described as the crucial element. Agartha is also tied to older esoteric mythologies that place hidden sanctuaries and retreat kingdoms within sacred landscapes. In these traditions, inner earth domains are linked to initiatory geographies, mountains and remote regions believed to conceal dimensional doorways, hidden chambers, or access points to advanced beings and concealed orders. In modern variations of the mythos, one of the most frequently named gateway regions is Mount Shasta, described as an access point where inner earth gates may open and as a nexus where contact can occur through alleged energetic interfaces between worlds. There are two broad ways people talk about Agartha and Agarthans. One approach treats Agartha primarily as a legendary inner earth kingdom, an occult and esoteric tradition that evolved through spiritual movements and hollow earth interpretations. In this approach, Agartha is presented as a mythic geography, a hidden realm that functions as symbol, spiritual map, and initiatory idea. Another approach presents Agarthans more literally as living participants in current events, an active inner earth civilization engaged with surface humanity through spiritual communication and disclosure narratives. In that modern ecosystem, inner earth inhabitants are frequently portrayed as telepathic, spiritually advanced, and technologically sophisticated, sometimes described as living in luminous subterranean cities, guided guided by councils or spiritually organized governance, and sometimes placed within broader cosmic alliances that include federations or confederations of benevolent, non-human groups. These legends often include themes of controlled disclosure, gradual awakening, and eventual open contact, presented as dependent on humanity reaching the right level of collective readiness. 10. Cultural cross-label, CD/Shining Ones. The Telosian are also associated with certain Celtic cultures, where they are said to be known as the Shining Ones or the Cedar. Interestingly, a group of Agarthans, ethereal, returned to the surface to teach and wander in avatar bodies. These Agarthans were the teachers of the ancient Druids. The Druids functioned like systems engineers of the living land, mapping subtle flows in rock, water, and sky, and learning how to tune a site without forcing it. Where other traditions built walls and declared territory, Druids built alignment, using procession routes, standing stones, and directional rites to create coherent fields that supported safe contact. In this framing, Agartha stayed concealed because the interface remained sensitive, and Druids were the group whose job was keeping that sensitivity from collapsing into chaos. Timing formed the second pillar. Druid calendars treated the year as a sequence of energetic gates, solstices, equinoxes, and cross-quarter days, when boundaries loosened and perception sharpened. Their rites looked less like symbolism and more like activation protocols, synchronizing breath, chant, and attention with the land's rhythm so a community could meet a threshold without destabilizing it. If Agartha engagement had windows, Druids were trained to hit those windows with precision and restraint. Taken together, the legends present Agarthans as a flexible concept. In one tradition, the term refers broadly to inner Earth residents within a portal and timelines cosmology. In another, it refers to named subterranean branches such as the Telosian, described with specific star origins, migrations, technologies, and methods of assisting humanity. Inner Earth is presented as a domain that cannot be reduced to ordinary underground geography, but is instead described as a time-layered continuum, a set of inner Earth timelines that interface with the surface through portal mechanics and parallel reality access. In that model, inner Earth contact is portrayed as occurring through timeline interface and transharmonic movement rather than simple physical travel. Inner Earth is depicted as an inhabited environment whose access opens through specific initiatory thresholds, and the overall system is described as a multi-layered ecology in which different beings and factions can operate through the same subterranean and interdimensional interface. The Agarthians are a peaceful, quiet reptiloid people who sustain themselves through vast subterranean gardens cultivated inside their remarkable inner Earth dwellings. Most of their civilization exists beneath the surface, spread through earth mounds and immense buried cities. They originate from a three-world planetary system known as K7. Over time, their aging sun began emitting harsher, hotter radiation that proved harmful to their physiology. As conditions worsened, the Agarthians gradually abandoned surface life and retreated underground as a long-term means of survival. Although they are recognized members of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, they rarely engage in diplomacy or wider political affairs, largely due to the isolation and constraints created by their subterranean society. In the same context, inner Earth Lemurians and Melchizedeks like Sanat Kumara the Venusian are also explicitly named as a line called to action for the same purpose, assisting with timeline link intersections into parallels, again tied to the Easter Island and Hawaiian Islands references, placing them as another specialized inner Earth branch in the architectural mechanics of timelines and gates. Particular legends include an appearance-based grouping in which Nordic and Celtic-like races are described as originating from the inner Earth alongside others. In that presentation, Nordic functions as phenotype language rather than a single off-world origin claim. There are said to be other races that resemble the Nordic appearance and come from the inner earth, which positions some Nordic and Celtic-looking groups as locally sourced from inner earth layers rather than only from stellar origins. Many lived as surface dwellers until they went back into the inner earth to preserve the purity of their race. In the historical timeline legends, Agartha is described as a contested domain, an arena for takeover, underground strategy, and incursions. The Nibiru Anunnaki resistance is presented as a faction described as deciding to take over the inner earth, paired with a patriarchal Melchizedek descendant lines of King Anu factional expression. These takeovers are described historically as aggressive territorial campaigns and the misuse of crystal-related interbreeding and power generation technologies tied to Earth's inner structures and caverns, with catastrophic outcomes used to explain large-scale planetary damage in the mythic chronology. In a related underground tunnels, Draconian/Draco-linked forces are described as operating through covert underground access routes, described through underground tunnels, invasion and deception language, placing Draco-linked actors as an incursion class associated with subterranean tunnel infrastructure and destabilization of underground systems. At the same time, Inner Earth has a portal occupancy and frequency mechanic system. Solar Risha are presented less as ordinary subterranean citizens and more as a high-level energetic class connected to the Inner Earth portal continuum. Their placement within Inner Earth is described in the sense of being seated in or operating through Inner Earth and adjacent portal systems, with access described as opening through specific tonal and initiation mechanics rather than geographic travel. In that worldview, Solar Rishi/Raisha are described as portal system-linked beings or ascended master-like operators connected to frequency states and initiation ladders that can open Inner Earth engagement and contact across Inner Earth timelines. Within that broad Inner Earth ecosystem, the Telosians are presented as a specific Western branch within an Agarthan network. They are described as originating from Alpha Centauri 4, a world called Salo. They are portrayed as tall, bright human beings with pale, gleaming skin and white hair, and they are said to possess strongly developed telepathic capacities. Their eyes are described as clear, with coloration ranging from grey to pale blue. Their diet is presented as plant-based, with food grown hydroponically under full-spectrum artificial lighting. They are also said to use psychotronic technologies connected to crystals and a universal life force energy. They are presented as an ancient colony related to the Telosians, who settled on Earth long before the last ice age. Ancient texts claims that Earth's myths remember them under the name Lemurians, but argues that Atlanteans would be a more accurate label because their civilization is described as having extended through the Atlantic region and along its shores. After the destruction of their lands, they are said to have migrated into multiple areas, including the American continent, Western Africa, and Western Europe. In Hollow Earth belief lore, there are several ancient cities within Agartha, once believed to be myth, that are connected to Agartha. The first is Hyperborea is framed as the far north blessed realm, and in modern occult retellings it becomes a polar sanctuary tied to the idea of North Pole gateways, a place where an elder culture either guarded entrances or vanished into the inner domain when surface conditions changed. Next, Lemuria is cast as a vast ancient civilization that ended in catastrophe, flooding, volcanic upheaval, continental collapse, and Hollow Earth versions often say its survivors preserved their culture by retreating into subterranean refuge networks and hidden cities connected by tunnels and threshold zones under sacred mountains. Another ancient land of Agartha is Shambhala, which becomes the initiatory Cedar Kingdom, a concealed center of wise rule and trained guardians that some believers place in a hidden Himalayan valley, while others treat it as a subtle realm overlapping the physical world, frequently paired with Agartha as the inner capital, reachable through rare passage, destiny, or inner preparedness. Mu is positioned as a mother civilization of the Pacific whose knowledge seeded later cultures. In Hollow Earth, myth-making it often blends with Lemuria or runs parallel to it, another drowned world whose survivors carry symbols, rituals, and sciences into inner sanctuaries, so the civilization continues below even when the surface chapter ends. Put together, the common thread is simple. Hyperborea equals polar origin/gateway. Lemuria and Mu equals lost continents whose remnants go inward, and Shambhala equals hidden seat of guardianship, all functioning as linked faces of one concealed inner earth realm believers call Agartha. In the Anunnaki/Sumerian tablet retellings, there is an account of a being named Galzu who arrives from inner earth, or another realm, around the time of the Great Flood, often linked in later myth framing to the flood of Atlantis. He is remembered as the white-haired Anunnaki to the Nibiruan Anunnaki, and the tradition presents him as a figure who was already on Earth before the Nibiruans, suggesting an older presence and a different origin than the later arrivals. Galzu's civilization are further described as having separated themselves from the Galactic Federation of Worlds during a migration underground, and as becoming the western branch of an Agarthan network. Agarthan is characterized as an umbrella term for the different species said to inhabit Earth's underworld. They are also described as having interbred with Terrans, with the claim that their genetic markers appear repeatedly within Earth's human population. Like their Telosians cousins, who are portrayed as working with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, they are described as benevolent by nature and inclined to assist humanity, specifically by remembering humanity's ancient past, helping with its ascension and improving human health and longevity. Their general mode of existence is described as distinct from that of Earth people, with an emphasis on being calmer, quieter, and vibrating at a somewhat higher density. They are said to participate in protecting the environment and ecosystems, and they are also described as resisting newer religious systems that, in this telling, disconnect humans from nature, from their own power, and from source. They are portrayed as helping Terran humans recover hidden knowledge by providing tools and hints, guiding archaeological discoveries, and offering keys for decoding ancient knowledge. Sanat Kumara, described as an Agarthan founder, arrives with a Venusian group and establishes a 5D Shambhala above the ancient Gobi Sea to stabilize Earth's condition, later anchoring a 4D city beneath it. In this framing, Agartha is portrayed as primarily 4D territory built upon an existing underground stronghold founded by a benevolent Pleiadian human group already living at 4th density. That early Agarthan base becomes a receiving point for peaceful star races and refugees, and from this coalition emerges the Paladorians, cast as defenders of Earth and of the beings who seeded life here. The Nakaals and Teronians, described as a South American Asiatic extraterrestrial line, later join the Pleiadian settlers below and help expand the subterranean city network, well before the Nibiruan arrivals enter the storyline. From there, the ancient text positions Agartha's deeper mission as a recovery operation tied to the Maldek-Mars War. Working in concert, Nakaals, the Pleiadian founders, and highly evolved Maldekians said to have survived in light bodies begin assisting the traumatized souls of those who perished. These souls are depicted as lingering around Earth in a vast cloud, waiting for incarnation, yet so fractured that their psychic capacities and Akashic recall are effectively offline, barely sentient as they move into the next phase of experience. That intervention then links directly into the surface timeline. Those fragmented souls are said to incarnate into the 3D matrix as primitive hominids, identified as Homo habilis, with active DNA reduced to 2 strands and the remainder left as latent potential. The text further claims that shards of once whole souls separate into different tribes and that many modern humans descend from these lineages, some gradually healing and reawakening spiritual capacity over long arcs of time, while others remain closer in consciousness to those early states. The passage also adds that when the Anunnaki of Nibiru arrived from Sirius, many Pleiadian lines interbred with them, and that this mixing initiated a long-term devolution in certain bloodlines. In response, some Pleiadian groups are said to have retreated back to inner Earth, away from surface dwellers into Agartha to preserve pure lineages, attempting to safeguard both their origin DNA and their cultural memory of their star systems before those markers weakened or disappeared. Finally, the ancient text explains the appearance and sudden disappearance of multiple Homo types in the fossil record as a blend of natural evolution and continued genetic intervention by the Nakaals and other factions, including Atlanteans of Nibiru and Pleiadians. It closes by asserting that descendants of those early tribes would later be altered into Homo sapiens by the Anunnaki roughly 2 million years after the introduction of Homo habilis, with nods to Homo erectus and Denisovans, setting the stage for the next installment of the Orion Wars and the broader Lost History arc. Now for the time you have waiting for in this episode. We will take a tour into Agartha. As we move deeper, you'll feel the contrast. Surface noise fades, the air grows warmer and calmer, and everything, from architecture to daily life, seems designed for stability and restraint. You reach the lower ridges while the world still holds its night breath. The forest feels attentive, every branch, every stone, every pocket of fog behaving like part of a living perimeter. As the climb continues, the air shifts from ordinary cold to a cleaner, quieter cool that seems to smooth thought into a single line. The gate announces itself as a gradient rather than a doorway. Sound dulls, wind loses its bite, and the light takes on a faint pearly depth. Skin prickles the way it does near charged weather, yet the sensation carries calm instead of tension. When the threshold gives, the mountain's surface reality slips behind like a curtain drawn without hands. Footsteps land on warmer ground, and a steady inner glow leads forward, as if the earth has opened a private corridor. The passage widens into immense caves shaped like cathedral arches, their walls banded with mineral layers that glitter when the light passes. The route curves and descends in long, gentle slopes, engineered for travel, yet left raw enough to feel ancient. Water runs alongside in thin, clear channels, and its sound becomes a soft companion that sets an even pace. Down here, the underworld reads less like a single place and more like a system. Vents releasing warm air at intervals, natural stone bridges spanning deep shafts, and distant luminous veins marking routes like quiet signposts. Safety arrives as a surprise. Structure without harshness, direction without pressure, while a low harmonic hum in the rock suggests the cavern itself is tuned to keep the mind settled. Ahead lies a broad subterranean junction where multiple routes meet, tunnels branching like river deltas, each lined with crystal-laced stone that carries light along the walls. Movement feels effortless. Platforms rising smoothly, silent vehicles gliding on field-based tracks, and walkways guiding foot traffic through subtle gradients of illumination. People flow in quiet coordination, no shoving, no frantic rushing, just an unspoken rhythm shared across the space. The engineering is advanced, yet it refuses harsh industrial textures, blending into the terrain as if it grew there. Standing at the crossing, it becomes clear how a vast network can function without chaos. The architecture teaches patience, and the technology behaves like an extension of the cavern's natural order. Then the world opens into a cavern so vast it resembles an inverted sky, its ceiling threaded with glowing crystal veins that cast dawn-like radiance across the city. Telos rises in terraces, bridges, and gentle curves, architecture grown from mineral, living material, and refined stone, sleek, clean, quietly luminous. Streets carry a soft hush as residents move with calm purpose, robes flowing in pale greens and whites that echo the city's light. Faces hold a refined symmetry and a youthfulness that hints at different rules of time. Older eyes carrying steady clarity rather than fatigue. Plazas invite reflection and shared work. Water features, gardens, gathering circles, crystal lanterns glowing without glare. The body responds on its own, shoulders lowering, breath deepening, as if the city was designed to bring the nervous system back into alignment. A circular hall waits near the heart of the settlement, where acoustics feel intentional, every sound softened, every voice carried evenly, no echo turning speech into noise. The chamber is built around a central crystal core, surrounded by tiered seating and open floor space meant for dialogue rather than dominance. Light refracts through the crystal in gentle geometric patterns that drift across the walls like slow music, creating an order felt directly in the chest. When representatives gather, human groups and other inner earth lines included, posture communicates restraint and listening. Decisions form less like votes and more like alignment. Pauses, measured speech, and long silences where the room seems to check itself for coherence. The steadiness of their society makes sense here. This space trains a community to choose clarity over impulse. Beyond the civic chambers, a growing sanctuary breathes with the scent of clean rain and fresh leaves, food and medicine cultivated as a single living system. Vertical layers of plants rise in luminous tiers, fed by clear streams running through crystal-lined channels. Full-spectrum lighting recreates sunlight with even radiance and no harsh shadows, while a gentle mist cools the skin as the rows pass by. Telosians tend the crops with deliberate care, hands moving slowly, eyes observant, expressions peaceful, treating cultivation like craft and devotion at once. Abundance shows itself as a discipline, healthy growth, balanced distribution, harvesting done with patience rather than urgency. Among the greenery, it becomes obvious how a plant-based system can shape a culture. Steady nourishment, predictable supply, and daily practice of harmony with living systems. Farther in, a healing complex feels like a clinic and a cathedral woven together. Smooth stone floors, curved crystal ribs overhead, and warm light that seems to sink gently into the body. The air carries a faint mineral freshness, and the entire environment invites stillness. Resting alcoves, water basins, and quiet rooms where people sit in calm recovery. Crystal arrays stand like instruments rather than decorations, each aligned towards specific stations where healing sessions unfold through sound, light, and field coherence. The work is precise. Attendants adjust resonance patterns, observe subtle changes in breath and pulse, and calibrate energies with disciplined restraint. Their elders' youthfulness begins to read as routine maintenance, cellular restoration paired with emotional regulation and communal stability. Walking through, thought clears in a gentle way, as if the space is designed to reduce inflammation in both body and mind. Not far away sits a sanctum where crystals rise like elegant pillars, each cut and placed with exact geometry. A quiet hum runs through the room, felt more than heard, while light behaves like a subtle language, shaping faint patterns in the air. At the center, a console blends temple aesthetics with refined technology, smooth stone, crystal interfaces, and hovering holographic forms that appear when hands approach the core. Energy moves through the lattice with clean coherence, no sparks, no harsh machinery. only disciplined flow shaped by intention and structure. Technology here seems inseparable from ethics. Every tool appears built to amplify harmony rather than force control. Standing near the core slows thought while sharpening it, as if the sanctum encourages mental precision and emotional steadiness. Leaving it behind gives one lasting impression. These instruments are tuned to a living field, carefully used, carefully limited, carefully aligned. Past the sanctum, archive corridors widen into galleries of artifacts, carved tablets, star maps, ancient devices, and crystal arrays arranged for activation rather than display. Light remains gentle and consistent, avoiding glare, as though the entire place was engineered to support concentration. At the center lies the Telossi Quartz Chamber, clear formations with internal striations that catch illumination into latticed geometries like coded architecture frozen in mineral. Proximity does something strange to attention. Focus locks in. The mind grows quiet, and connections begin forming without strain, as if the crystals serve as keys that open doors inside memory and intuition. Knowledge here behaves less like information stored on shelves and more like access granted through resonance. It becomes easier to see how Telosians would aid surface humanity, offering tools and hints that train the seeker to decode the ancient text for themselves rather than handing down answers that breed dependency. In a neighboring zone, the city's elegance shifts into a different kind of practicality, still integrated with stone and crystal, yet shaped for different bodies and different comfort needs. Doorways curve wider, ceiling heights vary, and temperature zones change subtly from corridor to corridor. A cultural difference registers at once: more guarded posture, slower movement, eyes that watch longer before trust forms. Even so, the atmosphere holds diplomacy rather than hostility. Shared markets, neutral meeting patios, corridor shrines emphasizing restraint and order. Quiet exchanges unfold between groups, traded materials, exchanged data, coordinated environmental projects. This district feels like proof that stability comes from structure, clear boundaries, clear agreements, and a shared commitment to non-escalation. The tension that could exist in such diversity is tangible, yet the systems hold it in balance without breaking. Deeper still, a chamber built around sensing rather than spectacle reveals itself. Walls embedded with crystal nodes, floor lines forming precise geometry, observation platforms oriented toward upward points in the Earth's energy grid. The space feels like a bridge between realms, part monitoring station, part meditation hall, part scientific lab. Instruments track geomagnetic flow, harmonic resonance, and subtle atmospheric changes, implying that contact with the surface depends on timing and coherence. When a window of alignment arrives, the air changes, slightly denser, slightly brighter, like the moment before a storm breaks, except calm and controlled. In that shift, the logic of hidden gateways becomes obvious. Access behaves like a condition that must be met, a resonance that must match rather than a door anyone can force open. At the edge of the district, a design atelier hums with quiet purpose, geometry made sacred and practical at once. Tables hold crystalline drafting tools, suspended models of complex patterns, and holographic grids rotating slowly in the air. The artisans treat shape like language, every angle chosen for meaning, every curve aligned to a wider energetic map. A team calibrates a design in real time, testing resonance, adjusting symmetry, refining proportions until the room's light behaves differently, as if the geometry itself alters the field. The intent lands viscerally. These designs are clues, keys, invitations, built to trigger recognition in the surface mind without requiring direct disclosure. Leaving the atelier carries a lingering sensation that geometry can be more than math, that it can become a doorway to lost science when presented in the right form. If Agartha, inner Earth, is real and the clues keep surfacing in plain sight, then one possibility is unsettling. Life on the surface has been shaped into a managed dream of limits, kept at a distance from something genuinely extraordinary. In that frame, Hollow Earth ideas become the kind of story you're discouraged from taking seriously, because the implication is convergence. Inner Earth civilizations and surface humanity are meant to reunite, but only when humanity reaches a threshold of readiness, a higher state of coherence, a lifted frequency, sometimes described as DNA activation or resonance. Most people believe the Earth is solid all the way through, just rock, pressure, and molten lava deep beneath our feet. That belief rarely comes from first-hand knowledge. It comes from blind trust in a system that decides what counts as truth. What if they lied? What if the Earth has been hiding something all along? An entire realm of existence that rewrites our understanding of human history, spirituality, and consciousness itself. Before winter, millions of birds and insects in the most extreme latitudes fly toward the poles. And those animals, when given tracking devices, lose their tracking signal. Mosquitoes in the northernmost landmass, Greenland, are so large and aggressive they can take out a caribou calf. Explorers at the South Pole have reported that after a certain latitude, the sub-zero temperatures suddenly rise dramatically, yielding green, iceless land areas and lakes. Strange evidence of warmer regions indicates that the North and South Pole may hold secrets beyond the idea of Santa Claus. In fact, they support a theory about Earth that some of the most celebrated geologists and astronomers have believed: that Earth is a spherical, spacious planetary body with enormous, continent-sized caverns deep within it and large entrances miles across at the North and South Pole. They say inner Earth has water, oceans, and luminosity, and that it sustains plants and animals, plus intelligent life. If this sounds like heresy, lay aside what you think you know and look at the evidence, the scientists, the legends and testimonies behind the inner Earth theory, because it may be the most game-changing information ever concealed from common knowledge, that miles beneath your feet are ideal conditions for a life-sustaining and inhabitable inner Earth. Mainstream science scoffs. It builds its house on models, assumptions, and equations, yet it has never dug deep enough to say with certainty what lies below. The deepest humans have ever drilled is just over 7 miles. That is under 0.2% of the Earth's diameter. We know more about outer space than we do about what's under our own feet, and in that blind spot, truth has been buried, literally. Then there's the issue of what we believe we know about forces and measurements. Who wasn't taught that gravity is what makes an apple fall? We've believed this for roughly 300 or 400 years since Isaac Newton defined it and its relationship to mass. In 2017, 2 neutron stars collided and proved indeed it's a distortion in space-time. According to Einstein, an apple falls from a tree because the apple's responding to a curvature of space-time caused by the planet's mass. If that represents a massive paradigm shift, then other theories tied to gravity deserve another look, especially how we measure Earth's mass. Today, the Cavendish experiment measures the mass of one object based on its tug to another, yet the gravitational conditions in a lab differ greatly from conditions in space, and the theory assumes each particle exerts a fixed force upon all others, ruling out the possibility that particles near the surface might exert a force greater than those deep within. If mass is overstated, then masses across the solar system could be overstated as well. If Earth is cavernous or hollow, then so too is every other planet in the solar system. Some of the greatest scientific minds challenged the theory of a dense Earth. Around the same time as Newton, Edmund Halley said the magnetic anomalies of the Earth could only be the result of a different composition. He believed that beneath the Earth's crust were thick concentric shells and that each region potentially had its own atmosphere, luminosity, and was possibly even inhabited. Halley speculated that the poles would provide access into Earth and that the aurora borealis was the result of light emanating from this counter-rotation. 100 years later, Leonard Euler proposed that Earth was completely hollow, with a central sun in the center, agreeing with Halley that holes at the North and South Pole would provide access to it. Johann Carl Friedrich Gauss stated that Earth's history, physics, and geography could be explained by Earth being a hollow planet with entrances at the poles. Naturally, satellite images of the poles would disprove this craziness, right? Yet NASA's images and videos of poles are rare. When they appear, they often have cloud cover, ice cover, or questionable anomalies, like sections blotted out. Stranger still, planes or satellites are kept away from certain distances near the poles. In November 1968, a satellite photo of the North Pole was released showing a large polar opening in absence of cloud cover. Time-based photography might explain that one image, yet later, anomalies raise questions, including the 1987 Russian space station Mir image showing light emanating in a mysterious fashion. Other images of planets and moons also show strange qualities or concealed poles. How's it possible to have perfectly hexagonal angles on Saturn? Why do images from space so often conceal the poles? As Edgar Allan Poe said, sometimes the best hiding place is the one that's in plain sight. Earthquakes add more complexity. Seismograph readings show density, yet waves can disappear entirely and then reappear further on. Shadow zones get explained as waves hitting a molten core, with complicated mathematics used to justify it, yet the readings carry inconsistencies. Could a simpler answer fit? Waves reverberate within a belt-like zone, yet disappear into very large caverns or underground seas miles beneath the outer crust. If inner oceans sound strange, consider drilling and seismic discoveries. The Kola superdeep borehole in Russia began in 1970 and took 20 years. It revealed unprecedented heat, fossils at depths 8 miles down, and water far deeper than assumed. In 2014, a team of US geophysicists using seismic readings discovered large bodies of water 400 miles into the Earth, concluding the mantle transition zone could hold 3 times the amount of water in the world's oceans, direct evidence supporting the hypothesis that the deep Earth holds a lot of water. Modern science cannot confirm the physical structure of Earth's interior as settled fact. There are many questions about the existing theory. A forming planet has zero gravity in its center, so mass accumulates where gravitational and centrifugal forces balance, creating a sphere with openings at the top and bottom, like a hurricane of matter in space rather than a perfectly solid body. This energetic flow, the torus, is a self-organizing system. An orange, a whirlpool, a tornado, the atom, the galaxy. Over millions of years, heating, cooling, convection, lava, water, glaciers, and centrifugal forces could make a planet more like a honeycomb than a perfectly solid rock. Current models are theories. Meanwhile, the facts on the surface already show how extreme voids can be. Every continent has cavernous networks like Son Doong Cave in Vietnam, jungles, rivers, space to fit a 40-story skyscraper, and Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, extending hundreds of miles. Caves develop ecosystems, water bodies, plant life, animal life. If such systems extend deeper, life adapts and fills it. Even the most inhospitable depths of the ocean have life forms adapted to darkness with their own luminosity. As Aristotle said, nature abhors a vacuum. Wherever there is a void, the universe seeks to fill it. So if enormous caverns continue into deep earth, what could be residing in the space miles beneath our feet? This brings us back to the hollow earth theory, that Earth contains massive internal cavities, and at the center of this hidden expanse lies Agartha, a radiant inner world illuminated by its own inner sun. This has been whispered across centuries by explorers, mystics, and ancient cultures around the globe. Hindu legends speak of Shambhala, a hidden land of gods and enlightened beings. Tibetan monks speak of tunnels beneath the Himalayas connecting the surface world to subterranean sanctuaries. In Norse mythology, there's Svartalfheim, a land beneath the earth. Even the Bible alludes to the underworld, distorted by religion, rooted in something older and far more complex. Almost every ancient culture shares legends about interactions with subterranean races. Some accounts frame the underworld as punishment or purgatory, meant to deter wrongdoing. Yet other accounts, Agartha, with cities like Shambhala and Potala, carry striking resemblances across continents. In many legends, civilizations speak of tall giants or advanced reptilian races. In the Mahabharata, the Hindus spoke of Aryavata, the abode of the excellent ones, ruled by a supernal race, the Nagas, half-human, half-reptilian beings, depicted with jeweled hoods that light their realm. It's said the Nagas possessed cutting-edge technology with an unpredictable nature. Agartha is presented as a key to decoding ancient myths, unlocking lost spiritual knowledge, and reclaiming what it means to be human. In nearly every version, surface dwellers appear disconnected, chaotic, lost. The inner world appears harmonious, spiritually advanced, timeless. That contrast says something. The deeper mystery may be less about whether Agartha exists and more about why we were made to forget. Because if people remember who they are, they become sovereign. They stop seeking permission to live, to know, to be, and that terrifies any system built on control. What was programmed can be unprogrammed. Memory can return. The veil can lift. The journey does not start with footsteps. It starts with stillness, shedding noise, retuning to silence, presence, awareness, following the subtle nudges and synchronicities, aligning frequency with truth. Because Agartha was never lost, humanity was lost. We extend our sincere gratitude to our cosmic warriors and galactic explorers members for standing with us. Your support keeps this channel alive as we collectively uncover, question, and explore the hidden layers of the planet. If this episode resonated with you, we ask you to help keep the momentum moving. Like, share, drop your reflections in the comments, and subscribe to Astral Legends for more ancient myths and astral adventures. We also want to reaffirm something simple and powerful. Every living being carries the strength and spark of the Creator within. Even in uncertain times, that inner light remains steady, waiting for us to remember it, cultivate it, and live from it. We ask you to protect your spirit and sharpen your discernment as we continue this journey together. And if you'd like to dive deeper into these topics, we recommend these books and channels for further enlightenment on your path. Until then, may the eternal light forever guide your path. See you on the next episode.